Well, I'd like to start things off today by thanking you all for taking the time to attend today's presentation. My name is Lance Zurich, and I'm the product manager for the fischertechnik Education Division over here at Studica. And today I'm going to provide you with an overview of fischertechnik's line of pre-assembled industrial simulation and training models, including the very latest models incorporating new cutting-edge technologies. Now, over the years, I would typically begin these presentations with a discussion of the importance of STEM education, changes in the manufacturing environment, and the growing need for highly skilled workers in the modern workforce. Now, as I think at this point, it's pretty well established just why technology-focused education is so necessary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dispense with any preamble and jump right into the discussion of what fischertechnik is and show you each of the current models in the simulation family. Now, fischertechnik simulation models have been designed with the intent of providing a compact, engaging, and hands-on method for teaching and demonstrating high-end automated systems. The line consists of a series of pre-assembled small-scale models which are designed to replicate in both appearance and in function various automated robotic machines and systems that are commonly used in commercial manufacturing. So the question is, of course, what is fischertechnik? So before we look at each of these models, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on exactly what fischertechnik is. Fischertechnik has been creating tools for teaching students of all ages about how technology works for over 50 years, all based around their unique building system. Now, what makes this building system so unique is that unlike other popular construction systems where the components are designed to simply stack, with the fischertechnik system, it was created with more of an engineering mindset. What this means is essentially the core building block, as you see in the diagram on the screen, is designed to enable attachment from all 6 sides using a tongue and groove assembly method. And because of this, it allows for almost limitless design possibilities. You basically have hundreds of different parts that are available for very specific design needs. So it allows you to address things of a technical nature like we're going to be looking at today. Now, the fischertechnik system was created back in the 1960s by German inventor Arthur Fischer, who's noted for countless innovations used in the construction and the automotive industries. Now, Mr. Fischer, at the time of his death in 2016, had more patents in his name than Thomas Alva Edison had amassed during his own lifetime. Now, prior to creating fischertechnik, Mr. Fischer was first noted as the inventor of synchronized flash photography. This was back in 1949. And a few years later, he gained fame as the creator of the expanding nylon wall plug, which is used in conjunction with a screw or a bolt to help anchor heavy objects to walls. His company, the Fischer Group, continues to employ thousands of workers around the globe, producing many variations of fastening devices used in building construction. And they also provide numerous components used in automobile assembly, as well as providing consulting services to companies who wish to employ state-of-the-art manufacturing processes. Now, once again, the focus of fischertechnik building sets, and it's whether those sets that are intended for the retail market or those that are used in the classroom, has always been on helping to foster an understanding of technology. Many of the products offered by fischertechnik for the education sector are what we would call subject-specific sets, and essentially they focus on different STEM-related topic areas, things like mechanics, pneumatics, robotics, renewable energy, and so on. Now, many of these sets either include curriculum or have detailed teaching and activity materials. And in most cases, students are asked to build a progression of models using the unique fischertechnik system. And then they perform various experiments which allow them to explore and understand key aspects of that particular subject. Now, the line of fischertechnik simulation solutions, which are, of course, the focus of today's presentation, are really something much different. Now, this line consists not of kits, but of a series of pre-assembled small-scale models which are designed to replicate, in both appearance and function, various automated robotic machines and systems. Now, some of the models that you're going to find in the fischertechnik simulation line will include things like conveyor belts, punching machines, 3-axis pick-and-place robotic arms, color sorting lines, and even high-bay storage warehouse systems. Now, besides these individual models, which of course focus on specific automated processes, fischertechnik also offers several variations of an integrated factory simulation model. And in these factory simulation models, what it'll do is it basically combines 4 of these individual workstations, in this case, a vacuum gripper robot, a high bay storage warehouse, a multi-processing station with an oven, and a sorting line with color detection. It combines them all to work together as one self-contained material cycle. And we're going to, of course, take a look at these models in detail during the course of this presentation. Now, some advantages of using the fischertechnik simulation model line, well, we're going to go through those. First off, fischertechnik simulation solutions allow educators to offer engaging, hands-on tools for teaching, exploring, and understanding various aspects of automation and programming. Now, this could be for understanding how automated systems work, or for having a tangible physical system to observe and work with in the programming or PLC-focused learning environment. The models, once again, are designed to realistically replicate, and as we say, both in appearance and in function, common automated systems, things again such as conveyor belts, sorting machines, robotic arms, and much more. Because the models are compact and in most cases tabletop size, they're not only ideal for use in the classroom or in office demonstrations, but also for demonstrating software or other technology-based offerings in a trade show environment. Next item is quality. Each fischertechnik simulation model is a hand-assembled, high-quality German-made product. Each model is available in a 24-volt version designed for industrial users, and in some cases, there is also a 9-volt version available as well. The 24-volt versions are really designed for use with industry-standard PLCs. And in this case, it doesn't matter if you prefer, let's say, Allen Bradley controllers, if you prefer Siemens controllers, or controllers for manufacturers such as Honeywell, Mitsubishi, General Electric, you can pretty much name it. You can control these 24-volt versions with the PLC that you prefer. Likewise, just as you can use your choice of controller, you can use your choice of the preferred programming languages, which are listed on the screen right now. I will note, though, that with all of these 24-volt versions, unless otherwise specified, there's an exception or two where I'll mention at the very end, but with otherwise, in each of these cases, no PLC is actually provided, and all of the programming guidance, as well as any power sources or other hardware, wiring, etc., are considered to be the responsibility of the end user, so just understand that. Of course, this shouldn't be an issue, as these models are really, again, designed specifically for industrial users or for those of you who are teaching or exploring industrial processes that are involving PLC programming specifically. On the other hand, for non-industrial users and for educators who aren't versed in or familiar with PLC programming, as I mentioned, there are select 9-volt versions available. Now, these 9-volt versions will ship pre-wired to fischertechnik's own proprietary controller, which is called the Robotics TXT controller. And in this case, each of the controllers is pre-programmed using fischertechnik's own RoboPro graphic programming software. In the case of these 9-volt models, the only additional component required with the 9-volt versions will be power adapters, simple 9-volt power adapters, and I'll specify how many you may or may not need with each model as we go through those. The next advantage, well, if you're involved in demonstrating or exploring IoT, which is, of course, the Internet of Things, besides the fact that many end users have adapted several of the models on their own in the primary line of simulation training models or training solutions for IoT purposes, fischertechnik now also offers a special IoT-focused version of the factory simulation model, which is designed specifically for exploring and understanding cloud control and what is often referred to as Factory 4.0. Now, in the case of these IoT-focused models, the model is designed to be both controlled and monitored from a special web-based dashboard. And we're, of course, going to look at that in more detail as we proceed through the presentation. And finally, fischertechnik simulation models are cost-effective. Now, if you've had the opportunity to look into any of the other hardware-based industrial simulation options that are available in the marketplace, you'll probably notice that the entry point for many of these products can easily be $30,000 to $40,000, or even much more. Fischertechnik simulation solutions, on the other hand, start at just a fraction of that price. And again, they're compact, realistic, and high-quality learning and demonstration tools. So with that all being said, we're going to start by taking a look at the main industrial simulation model line. And we're going to start off by looking at the conveyor belt. So what you see here is basically a transport belt with a length of 275 millimeters that is used to transport workpieces with a diameter of up to 29 millimeters. In this case, multiple conveyors can easily be connected to increase the length of transport as you might desire. Components that are included on this model will include an excess motor, a push-button limit switch, 2 phototransistors, and 2 LED light barriers. Dimensions of the model are approximately 10 by 14 by 4 inches with a weight of under 2 pounds. The model is available in both the 24-volt version with a multi-pin connector, and that would be 26 pins with a 2.54 millimeter grid as seen here. And again, the 24-volt version of this model, as well as most of the 24-volt versions that we're going to look at today, will of course require you to have the PLC and provide your own programming. But besides this, there is also a 9-volt version, which is connected to a pre-programmed robotics TXT controller, as is shown in this picture. And in this case, one 120-volt power adapter is required for operation. I will also mention that for this and all of the other models that we're going to look at today, you can also find these specs that I go over located in the product listings that are found on both the Studica website and the fischertechnik.biz website maintained here in the US. And also, I will provide email information at the end too. So if there's something that you need to get sent to you, by email, what have you, on any of these models you might be looking at, you can request it at that time. Now, the next model we're going to look at is the punching machine with conveyor belt. And this is a variation of the conveyor belt we just looked at, except that this time there's a machining station built onto it. Components on this model include 2 excess motors, 2 push-button limit switches, 2 phototransistors, and 2 LED light barriers. Dimensions of the model are approximately 15 by 12 by 7.5 inches with a weight of about 3.5 pounds. Again, it's available in the 24-volt variation with a 26-pin connector and a 2.54 millimeter grid, as is shown here. And the 9-volt version is wired to the robotics TXT controller, which requires one 120-volt power adapter for use. The next model in the line is the index line with 2 machining stations. And as you see here, the model features a U-shaped conveyor line consisting of a milling and a drilling station, along with 4 conveyor belt sections. Other components on this model include 8 excess motors, 4 push-button limit switches, 5 phototransistors, and 5 LED light barriers. The dimensions for the model are approximately 19 by 18 by 11 inches, and it has a weight of just about 8 pounds. Again, it's available in both the 24-volt version with a 26-pin connector and a 2.54 millimeter grid for use with a PLC, and also a 9-volt version, which in this case is wired to the pre-programmed robotics TXT controllers, 2 of them actually, and in this case, you will require 2 120-volt power adapters. Next up is a variation on the idea of a pick-and-place robot, which is called the 3D or 3-axis robot in this instance. This 3-axis robot has gripping forceps, which it uses to help it quickly and precisely position the workpieces it picks up in 3-dimensional space. The degrees of freedom for this model are as follows. Axis 1 turns 180 degrees. Axis 2 can move forward or backwards 90 millimeters, and axis 3 can raise or lower 150 millimeters. Components on the model include 2 excess motors, 2 encoder motors, and 4 push-button limit switches. Dimensions for the model are approximately 19 by 16 by 9 inches, and it has a weight of 6 pounds. And as with the other models we've looked at, this is again available in both a 24-volt version with the 26-pin connector and 2.54 millimeter grid designed for use with the PLC and the programming of your choice, or a 9-volt version wired to a pre-programmed robotics TXT controller and requiring one 120-volt power adapter. Next up, we're going to look at the vacuum gripper robot, and in this case, you're going to start seeing some video of the models in motion, which I think will be helpful. Now, as you'll see in this video coming up, the vacuum gripper is essentially a 3-axis robotic model with a vacuum gripping device. The model is designed to precisely pick up and position workpieces in 3-dimensional space, just as the model we just looked at before. In this case, it includes 3 encoder motors, 3 push-button limit switches, a vacuum suction device, a compressor, and a solenoid valve. The dimensions for this model are approximately 9 by 19 by 15 inches, and it has a weight of just about 7 pounds. The 24-volt version of this model, as well as all of the 24-volt models that we're going to be looking at moving forward, each have a relay board for motor polarity reversal, and both a multi-pin connector, in this case 34 pins with a grid of 2.54 millimeters, as well as additional PCB terminals with push-in connections for all inputs and outputs. Again, the 24-volt version of this model, as with all the 24-volt versions, will require you to provide the PLC and the programming of your choice. And there is unfortunately not a 9-volt version of this available right now. We're just going to let this play through for a second. Again, as I stated before, if anyone does have any questions that arise during the presentation, please feel free to type them into either the webinar chat window or the question and answer window. As I said, I will probably end up addressing anything at the very end of the presentation, but if it does come up and you want to note it, please just put it in there. The next model we're going to look at is the automated high bay warehouse. In this video, you'll see that the model features a transfer station with conveyor belt, along with a shelf stacking mechanism for storing and retrieving workpiece carrier trays. Along with that, it has 9 individual storage spots for the workpieces. Components on the model include 2 encoder motors, 2 mini motors, 4 push-button limit switches, 2 photo transistors, 2 LED light barriers, and a selection of different colored workpieces along with carrier trays for each. I will mention that this model is a favorite among educators that I've spoken with who teach PLC programming. And the reason for that being a favorite with them is because it gives so much for the students to have to work with in terms of the programming tasks that they're going to have to address. Very specific tasks, as you know, things such as the precision of the arm, putting the pieces into the different shelf areas, and the storage and retrieval from the various work pieces and what have you. So this requires a lot of coding work, and because of that, you know, they like it. The dimensions on the model are approximately 19 by 28.5 by 15 inches, and it has a weight of 18 pounds. Again, the 24-volt version has a relay board for motor polarity reversal in both the multi-pin connector, 34 pins with a grid of 2.54 millimeters, as well as additional PCB terminals with push-in connections for all inputs and outputs. And again, you need to provide your own PLC and programming. And yes, in this case, there is a 9-volt version available at this time, and that does come pre-wired to the Robotics TXT controller and requires one 120-volt power adapter. And our next model is the multi-processing station with oven simulation. And the model you're going to see here features a furnace simulation with a pneumatic sliding door. There's a downstream processing station with a pneumatic transfer unit that includes a vacuum gripper, a cutter with a rotary table, and a conveyor belt. Components on this model include 4 mini motors, 6 push-button limit switches, 2 photo transistors, 2 LED light barriers, 4 solenoid valves, and a compressor. The dimensions for this model are approximately 20 by 14 by 12 inches, and it has a weight of 11 pounds. Again, this one is available in both the 24-volt version for use with the PLC of your choice, which once again, it has a relay board for motor polarity reversal, and both a multi-pin connector, 34 pins with a grid of 2.54 millimeters, as well as additional PCB terminals with push-in connections for all inputs and outputs. And the 9-volt version in this case is connected to 2 Robotics TXT controllers, so 2 120-volt power adapters will be required for all operation. We'll let them play through for a second. And there we go. The next model we're looking at is the sorting line with color detection. And we're going to do one thing here because it likes to put sound on. What you're going to see here is a simulation featuring a system for detecting work pieces of different colors and which sorts them via conveyor belt into 3 different storage bins. Components used on this model include 2 mini motors, 5 phototransistors, 5 LED light barriers, 3 solenoid valves, a compressor, and an optical color sensor. The dimensions for this model are approximately 20 by 14 by 12 inches, and it has a weight of about 10 pounds. As before, the 24-volt version is a relay board for motor polarity reversal in both the multi-pin connector, 34 pins with a grid of 2.54 millimeters, as well as additional PCB terminals with pushing connections for all inputs and outputs. Again, the end user must provide the PLC and the programming. The 9-volt version, again, comes pre-wired to a pre-programmed robotics TXT controller, and one 120-volt power adapter is required. Oh, we'll let that go for a second. Oh. All right. So the next model we're looking at is the factory simulation model, and this combines the last 4 models we've just reviewed: the vacuum gripper robot, the automated high bay warehouse, the multi-processing station with oven, and the sorting line with color detection into one self-contained material cycle. And the cycle you're going to see works like this. Work pieces are retrieved from the automated high bay warehouse using the vacuum gripper robot, and then moved to the multi-processing station with oven. Now, after the work piece has been processed by this machine, it is then sorted by color in the sorting line with color detection, before again being moved by the vacuum gripper robot to the automated high bay warehouse for storage. Now, as we've already discussed the components of each model previously, I'm not going to belabor it by restating them here, but what I do want to discuss are the dimensions of this model as a whole. As it again combines 4 individual models into one cycle, it has a much larger footprint of approximately 39 by 31 by 16 inches, and it has a weight of between 43 and 46 pounds, depending upon whether we're talking about the 24-volt or the 9-volt version. Now, due to these dimensions, please note that this model will only be shipped flat as freight on a pallet. And I also want to point out that as the factory simulation models do tend to be in very high demand, please anticipate or plan on a possible turnaround time of up to 3 weeks, especially if we're talking at the beginning of the year, prior to any orders for this model being able to leave our warehouse. Now, a few other things to note. This is again available in both the 24-volt and the 9-volt version. And in the instance of the 9-volt version, it is wired to 5 robotics TXT controllers. And because of this, it's going to require 3 120-volt power adapters. And as with all of the previous models we've discussed so far, the 24-volt version will require the end user to provide the PLC, the programming, and any other hardware that might be required. Now, before we move on to the next grouping of models, I do want to mention that there is also a storage option available for those users of either of the 2 factory simulations we just looked at, who might want to transport the model or want to protect it when it's not in use. And the travel case you see here consists of an aluminum case maker profile with plastic plates and steel ball corners, as well as 4 steel tilt handles and angle protection corners. The upper section of the case is partially lined with soft foam blocks in different heights to help cushion the model, and it also has 3 internal zipper pockets for storing cables and other accessories. The lower portion is lined with hard foam, and it's designed so that once the top of the travel case is removed, the model can remain in the bottom section of the case and be fully functional. The case itself has exterior dimensions of approximately 41 by 33 by 17 inches, and it has a weight of approximately 53 pounds when it's empty, and usually about 100 to 110 pounds when you have the factory inside it. I will note, though, that even when using this travel case, that these models would still need to be shipped flat, and that you will always want to ship them if you're shipping them between different locations. You would want to ship them flat on a flat pallet to prevent any possible damage in transit. Now, the next grouping of models we're going to focus on are basically designed for addressing the area of IoT. And these are called Training Factory Industry 4.0 models. And this group of models is designed specifically to address how the recent changes in industrial production, which were driven by digitization, have created a need for stronger networking and more relevant information on all production levels. Now, with this Industry 4.0 update of the existing factory simulation model that we looked at before, in this case, such digitization activities can be simulated, learned, and applied on a smaller scale before you're implementing them on a larger scale. Now, as the video you're going to see here does provide a nicely narrated overview of how the factory works, in this case, I'm going to let you hear the audio, and I'm going to step back for a minute because the narrator covers everything pretty nicely, so we're going to go ahead with that. Oh, hang on. What is this? Okay, I'm hoping you got the audio for that portion because we were having a little bit of a technical issue there. Sorry about that. I do apologize. But anyway, as the video touched upon, and again, hopefully if you heard all of these things, the following topics can be addressed with the Fisher Technic Training Factory Industry 4.0. You can address training and simulation on a realistic production model, in-depth learning through haptic comprehension, optical and sensory applications, digital traceability with NFC/RFID technology, customized production in lot size 1, integrated cloud connection and control via smart devices, using and operating dashboards, web-based remote maintenance, the linking of production and materials planning data, the connection of upstream and downstream logistics processes, and for experts, the creation of your own unique programming using C, C++. Now, as you just saw, the model incorporates many features not found in the models that we looked at earlier, perhaps most notably the use of the cloud-based dashboard for monitoring and controlling the model itself. And some other examples would be the camera that's used for visually monitoring the factory's functions from the cloud-based dashboard, as well as the environmental sensor, which collects data on variables such as temperature, air quality, humidity, and air pressure. The use of NFC chips in each individual workpiece enables the positions of each workpiece in the work cycle to be mapped. And the use of MQTT, or message queuing telemetry transport, allows the networked TXT controllers to communicate with one another, or the PLC to communicate with the TXT. We should also briefly talk about the variations of this model. And we're going to begin by focusing on the 24-volt version and what makes it unique. First off, the 24-volt version is a bit of a hybrid in that while requiring a PLC for operation and control, it does also incorporate one Fischer Technic's robotics TXT controller. And the TXT controller in this case serves as the MQTT broker and interface to the Fischer Technic cloud. Communication between the PLC and the TXT controller is carried out using an IoT gateway via OPC UA. OPC UA, which is also known as OPC Unified Architecture, is a standard for exchanging data across different platforms. In addition to the TXT controller used here, there is also an IoT gateway using Raspberry Pi with Node Red. And this allows for the option for not only presenting and using data on a dashboard in the Fischer Technic cloud, but also being able to display data and calibrate the stations of the factory in a Node Red dashboard. And the model also incorporates newly developed 24-volt adapter boards to interface to the PLC. And these, of course, ship as part of the assembled training factory and are connected to the PLC via terminals. Now, among other things, the latest generation of adapter boards allows for the speed of the encoder motors to be controlled via PWM, or pulse width modulation. And they also have push-pull output stages for phototransistors and for buttons. And what's probably the most important new feature of this model is, unlike the previous 24-volt versions that we've discussed, the new 24-volt Training Factory Industry 4.0 includes access to a sample program. And this program was created in structured text format, ST format, and was created based around the Siemens S7-1500 PLC. And it's available for download from GitHub. So if you want, you can even go to GitHub right now. There's a link for that. That should be on our site. We can provide information for that. You can download the program. And of course, as the new training factory can also be controlled with other PLC models and brands. Once the end user makes some small adjustments to the sample program, there's source code that's also available on GitHub. So you can get all of that. So you can make the adjustments and modify it as you might need to. All of this information and much more is included in the 152-page PDF manual, which you can download from the Fischer Technic website as well. We can also provide that to you, and that's designed specifically for this model. Now, in the case of the 9-volt version, the control is facilitated through the use of 6 robotic TXT controllers. Now, again, all programming is preloaded, so that once the connection to the internet and the cloud-based dashboard are made, all of which is clearly outlined in a downloadable documentation PDF that comes with this version, once you've done that, you should be able to get started pretty quickly. Now, the 9-volt version will require the addition of 3 120-volt power adapters, of course, and it must be stated that whether we're talking about the 9-volt or the 24-volt versions, It is also required, of course, that the end user have the ability to access the internet because of the cloud-based dashboards, and also have a tablet or another device that's used for actually accessing the dashboard as well. And just to finish things up, the dimensions for these models are approximately 39 by 31 by 16 inches each, with a weight of approximately 51 to 53 pounds, depending on which version we're talking about. Now, as with the two factory simulations we discussed previously, we do recommend the optional travel case to help protect your model during travel or storage. And that is the Training Factory Industry 4.0 model, which again is available in both a 24 volt and 9 volt version. But we do have one more model to talk about, which was just added to the fischertechnik simulation line in late spring of 2023. And this model incorporates the cutting edge technology that is quickly becoming a part of our daily lives. This is the quality control with AI system model, and it's ideal for visualizing this complex subject area in a hands-on manner, as it creates a sustainable learning experience by linking theory and practice. Now, processes can be sped up, fault rates and costs minimized, and fault evaluation standardized. The fischertechnik sorting line shown here comes with work pieces in 3 different colors, and these work pieces are marked with 3 different processing characteristics as well as various fault patterns. So each one, again, has its own specific characteristic that marks it as a quality piece, or different pieces that are error pieces. In each case, the workpiece is scanned by the camera, and it's classified with the aid of the trained AI. Now, depending on the color, the feature, and the fault pattern, the work pieces are then sorted by the artificial intelligence on the basis of their quality features. The AI used is realized with machine learning and TensorFlow, where an artificial neuronal network was trained with image data. The learned AI is executed on the fischertechnik TXT 4.0 controller. The model's sequence control is implemented in the RoboPro coding program environment and in Python. Now, if you want to go a step further, you do have the option of generating your own AI applications. And in this case, the training is done in Python, for which a sample program is provided for explanation. And again, that's the new quality control with AI model. It's ideal training, simulation, and demonstration model for education and for research, and for the visualization of AI systems, machine learning, and neural networks. Right now, it's available only in a 24-volt version, but we are hoping for only in a 9-volt version, but we are hoping for a 24-volt version in early 2024. The 9-volt version in this case uses the fischertechnik's Robotics TXT 4.0 controller, and as before, one 120-volt power adapter is required for operation. Again, details and pricing for the 24-volt version are expected very soon, and we anticipate a spring 2024 release. So on that note, you might be wondering how much these models cost. So we're going to take a quick review of each of the options we've looked at so far, along with the pricing for each. First up, the conveyor belt. In the 24-volt version, which again, as with many of these, you have to supply your PLC and the programming. The 24-volt version is $324.95. The 9-volt version, which again will already include the TXT controller, that is $518.95. The punching machine with the conveyor belt in the 24-volt version requiring PLC is $419.95. In the 9-volt version is $599.95. Again, that comes pre-wired to the TXT controller. The index line with 2 machining stations in the 24-volt version is $1,129.95. In the 9-volt version with the 2 TXT controllers, it is $1,394.95. The 3D 3-axis robot in the 24-volt version requiring PLC is $999.95. In the 9-volt version, $1,369.95 coming pre-wired to the TXT controller. The vacuum gripper robot, only available in a 24-volt version, requires PLC and programming, $1,129.95. The automated high bay warehouse in the 24-volt version is $1,369.95, requires PLC. Your 9-volt version comes pre-wired to the TXT controller. That is $1,318.95. The multi-processing station with the oven in the 24-volt version, $1,199.95. In the 9-volt version, pre-wired to the TXT controller, $1,474.95. The sorting line with color detection in the 24-volt version, again requiring PLC, $1,049.95. In the 9-volt version with the pre-wired TXT controller, pre-programmed TXT controller, $1,128.95. The factory simulation, the 24-volt version, again requiring PLC, $4,829.95. The 9-volt version, pre-wired to numerous fischertechnik TXT controllers, that's $5,239. The Training Factory Industry 4.0, the IoT version, cloud-based control and monitoring. The 24-volt version requiring PLC is $8,999.95 per unit. The 9-volt version with the TXT controllers is $9,024.95. But we do have some variations, which I hinted at before. There are now two new 24-volt variations, one of which includes all the wiring and the PLC connector board for the use with the PLC. So you just plug in your PLC with this, and that comes to $12,079.95. Or if you want a more complete option, we have two versions that include the Siemens PLC. So pretty much it's as close to a all-in-one, all-inclusive model as we offer. So this will include all of your wiring to the connection board and also the PLC itself, the power supply, etc. Of course, with all of these Training Factory Industry 4.0 models, you do get that sample version of the program in structured text format. In any case, that's available. But anyway, if you're looking at the version with the Siemens PLC S7-1500, for educational customers, that being anybody, colleges, universities, accredited educational institutions, you were looking at the cost of $18,499.95 per unit. For commercial customers, which is pretty much everyone else, that would be $20,124.95 per unit. Other items that we've talked about, the 120-volt power adapters that are used with the 9-volt models, as I've discussed throughout, you need those for some of those, and also for the Training Factory Industry 4.0, even the 24 volts will require one 120-volt power adapter. Those are $12.99 each, so not too bad. The travel and storage case that we recommend for all factory simulation and Training Factory Industry 4.0 models, those are $1,524.95 each. And that last model that I mentioned, the quality control with AI that was new this year, the 9-volt version is $2,089.95. Again, it comes pre-wired to the pre-programmed TXT controller. And the 24-volt version we were hoping to have in late 2023, but like I said, that is expected now in 2024. So on that note, if you have any questions, and I don't see anything has popped up in the chat windows or the question and answer window, so, and it still could, but in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move right along to taking the next step. So if you would like to get a copy of our full color brochure and the current pricing for these models, if you'd like to ask any questions about any of these directly, if you'd like to request a quote, or if you would like to speak with your dedicated educational representative, depending on which state you're from, you can just call us directly here at Studica US. Number toll free is 888-561-7521. You can email us with general inquiries, these being quote requests, things of that nature, requesting documentation, what have you. You can email us at info@studica, studica.com. If you have any questions about anything I specifically talked about or didn't mention that you would have wished I would have, or if you have any questions about anything fischertechnik related, you can email me directly. And that is my email address up there, lance.zurich. So lance.zurek@studica.com. So on that note, thank you very much for taking the time to attend today's presentation. Have a great afternoon and have a great holiday season. We look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.